Selamat pagi adik-adik mahasiswa. Di video ini kami lanjutkan tentang mikrokontraksi ya. Sekarang kita lanjut dari mulainya dari pelepasan ion Ca sehingga menimbulkan binding atau pemendekan dari thin filamen dan thick filamen sehingga menimbulkan kontraksi otot. Kita mulai.
So just recapping, here's what our sarcomere looks like, and it contains the thin filaments and the thick filaments. The thin filaments in blue and the thick filaments in red. So let's get a portion of this thick filament, and this is what it looks like. And it contains many myosin heads, usually in doubles, as you can see. And myosin, the protein myosin, makes up the thick filaments. So each of these heads are part of a myosin molecule, you can say. And if we take a zoom or a portion of the thin filaments, this is what the thin filament looks like. And it's a bit more complicated in that the actin proteins are like twisted together like a helix. And there are also other structures, such as tropomyosin, which actually blocks the binding site of actin here, shown in green. And we also have troponin here in orange, which allows calcium to bind to it. And we'll see why these other structures are here. But essentially, if we zoom into one myosin molecule, here we have one myosin molecule, and the myosin proteins actually wrap around together to form the helix as well, and that is why we have two myosin heads in duplicates. And the myosin head contains two important sites. One site is for ATP, so an ATP binding site, and also the top here has an actin binding site, so it can bind to the actin proteins of the thin filament. So here we have a thin filament with actin proteins. And the actin, the thin filament is made up of actin subunits here. But an important note to make from this structure is that myosin heads can only bind to actin subunits if tropomyosin is moved. And as you can see, the tropomyosin has moved here. And it's moved because calcium binds onto this orange structure, the troponin. And so let's look at this in more detail. So myosin heads can only bind to actin if tropomyosin is moved. So here we have the thin filaments consisting of many actin subunits. And we have the structure in orange here, troponin. And tropomyosin, as shown, is blocking the binding of myosin onto actin. And here we have two duplicates of myosin heads shown in red. And it wants to bind to the actin subunits. And when ATP comes along, ATP will bind to the ATP binding site of the myosin. And this causes myosin to want to bind to actin subunits. But it can't because of tropomyosin. Because tropomyosin blocks the actin's binding site, preventing the binding of myosin heads onto actin subunits. And so if we introduce calcium, if calcium comes along from somewhere magically, calcium will bind to the troponin, the orange part, moving tropomyosin out of the actin and myosin connection. And so here we have the myosin heads again, and it has ATP has been used, and it has ADP, so it has energy. And here we have the thin filaments with the actin subunits. And as you can see, calcium has bound onto the troponin. And this has caused tropomyosin to move away from the myosin binding site on the actin subunits. And so here we have tropomyosin moving away from the myosin binding site, which allows myosin heads to attach to the actin subunits. And so myosin heads can bind to the actin subunits because tropomyosin has moved away from the binding site of myosin on actin.
Oke, jadi dari penjelasan ini kita lihat bahwa ion Ca yang tadi dilepas di tubulus, dia akan berikatan dengan troponin sehingga troponin akan membuat si tropomyosin melepaskan tropomyosin sehingga memungkinkan si aktin untuk menempel ke myosin. Nah, di sini peranan dari ATP sendiri adalah untuk menggerakkan atau menarik. Ya, jadi si ATP sebagai sumber energi, dia akan kepala myosin tadi yang sudah menempel dengan aktin untuk terjadi tarikan sehingga terjadinya kontraksi. Jadi ion kalsium sendiri dia peranannya adalah melepas atau menggerakkan tropomyosin dari bindingnya sehingga memungkinkan si myosin untuk berikatan dengan aktin.
And so because of this enables the myosin molecules in red to pull the thin filaments towards the center of the sarcomere, towards the M line. So it's pulling it. And this is why it needs ATP. And when this occurs, essentially when myosin moves, actin will generate tension and contraction in muscle, essentially. So again, myosin will pull actin towards the M line, and myosin itself will then move towards the Z line. And what does this mean? Let's look at a big picture. Let's look at firstly a relaxed state when nothing is happening, when no calcium and no ATP is around. So here we have a sarcomere, which is in between, which is from a Z disc to another Z disc, and we have an M line in the middle. And this is a relaxed sarcomere in a relaxed state. And so when ATP and calcium comes along, this will cause myosin heads to pull thin filaments towards the center of the sarcomere, towards the M line. So if you can imagine, here we have a fully contracted sarcomere, and this is in a tense state, let's just say. And so in a fully contracted sarcomere, the myosin heads will pull the thin filaments towards the center of the sarcomere, towards the M line. And so because of this, the sarcomere will become shorter. And this is known as a sliding filament theory. And the sliding filament theory states that each sarcomere shortens as the thin filaments slides closer together between the thick filaments, so that the Z discs are pulled closer together. So what this means is that essentially the Z discs are coming close together like so. And this is what contraction looks like in a intramolecular level. So now let's zoom into.
Ya, jadi adik-adik mahasiswa, kita lihat bagaimana proses konsentrik maupun eksentrik, pemendekan maupun pemanjangan otot terjadi begitu melalui proses yang sangat kompleks. Meskipun sepintas gerakannya pada saat bergerak tampak sederhana, tapi itu melibatkan begitu banyak sistem biomekanik, chemical, ya, dari mulainya rangsangan pada saraf somatik, di motor neuron, pelepasan terjadi depolarisasi, pelepasan asetilkolin dan seterusnya, pelepasan ion Ca sampai terjadinya pengikatan antara myosin dan aktin sehingga menimbulkan tarikan, ya, pada myosin menarik aktin sehingga terjadi pemendekan dari otot. Pada saat ATP-nya dilepas, maka secara berangsur otot akan memanjang kembali atau fase eksentrik. Terima kasih untuk perhatiannya.